Any law that violates the Constitution is already illegal, so what does this do? But to frame the obvious, how is it necessary? That type of question.
Whatever rights aren't protected under the Constitution. I think that let me make sure I understand this question correctly. Thank you. How does this protect any rights not already protected in the Constitution? Our fundamental liberties and freedom is already protected in the Constitution. And whether the government tells us we have these freedoms or not, they're inherent inside of us. So you're only free as long as you choose to live free. I sincerely believe that. But there is a trend in America where the application of foreign law has been used on occasion in other states, and the application of that foreign law has deprived somebody of a fundamental liberty. For example, you can take the right to pursue happiness, what happened in the Gibson guitar case, for example, or for the example that you used about burying. Well, Section 6 of this bill allows people to use ecclesiastical law, and being buried doesn't necessarily, that's not going to conflict with somebody else's fundamental liberty. It might conflict with a bunch of red tape at a local level or even a county level, but it doesn't conflict with somebody else's fundamental liberties. So I think that those particular 2 points
how would you coincide the two stands? One of them wants to incriminate me. One of them is
Section
well,
Section 7 says that you would be allowed to use ecclesiastical law. So right, but your son also being a Muslim, I assume that the judge would most likely rule in favor because
not according to your test.
Because according to Section 7, it allows people to continue operating based on their faith, and they can continue to exercise ecclesiastical law. So this bill is designed to protect us really from an intrusion in the court system in which the application of foreign law from time to time, it's really not a huge problem in America, but it has happened on occasion. And so since the judiciary depends on the legislature to set policy, we're setting a policy that simply says you can apply foreign law, just make sure that it doesn't deprive somebody of a fundamental liberty. It's really very simple. And I think that it's something that anybody in any particular situation will find that their fundamental liberties, whether it's to choose how to be buried according to the tenets of their faith, is protected here, as it says specifically in Section 6, that ecclesiastical law will still apply. And it's only if it deprives somebody of a fundamental liberty. If what you want to do conflicts with the red tape at a county or a local level, that's an entirely different matter. And that's not actually addressed in this bill. This is just to protect your individual liberties.
Thank you very much. I would also recommend for panelists not to talk when the other person's talking. Everybody has their specific time, so we can follow that. This is open for both of John and Paul as well, and it's open to the question. It just says last week the Senate filibustered SB 676, which is almost an exact copy of HB 1512, and they just want to know what are your thoughts about that, or what do you believe the future of the bill can be?
So yes, in the way our system works in the Senate, there's a filibuster rule, which means that senators can stand up and talk for a great length of time and essentially run out the clock on a bill. So the Senate is usually the brakes on a bill, where the House is maybe the gas, if you think of it that way, because in the House they don't have a filibuster system. So yes, just this past week the bill was filibustered in the Senate, and it was two senators spoke for about 50 minutes, and then the bill was withdrawn from the floor. So in terms of the future, that bill can be brought back up at any time during the session. So it might come back up, but there are actually 5 or 6 or 7 senators who have expressed a willingness to filibuster the bill in the Senate. So I would predict that that's what's going to happen. Last year the bill passed with a fairly substantial majority. You probably know the numbers, but it passed easily in the House, and I would expect that it's going to pass in the House again, probably this week. Might come up to the floor.
Yep.
Okay. I have another question, I think for Paul Kirkman. It says, I was married 29 years ago in Bangladesh. My marriage was done according to that country's law. do we have to get married again in America, basically?
That particular issue, however the laws are being applied right now, they would continue to be applied in the same way. So if that answers the question, they would continue to be applied in the same way.
Thank you very much. And another question is also for Representative Kurtman. Were you one of the sponsors of the anti-Sharia bill last year? If yes, why? And are there any similarity between this bill and the bill from last year?
Between HB
1512
and 708?
Yes,
There are some similarities between the two bills. We made a lot of changes. We went through the bill, for example, this time around, we went in and specifically made so many. We use this phrase, including but not limited to. That way, we keep it open. The kind of protections that we're looking for would. Let me just read off some of these people that we just included, but are not limited to it. Officers, priests, nuns, monks, pastors, rabbis, imams, members of the clergy, other religious organizations. We really made a solid effort to list the people that are going to be experiencing protection by this law, saying that this bill cannot be used to deny nor disparage these particular people from their fundamental religious tenets. So that was probably one of the, I quite honestly believe, probably one of the best things that we could have put in the bill to try to display a sense of wanting to cooperate and say that this is not out. We're not out to try to get anybody. This is the real intent behind here. The real spirit behind this law is just to protect a fundamental liberty, such as freedom of speech, right to assemble, things like that. It's stuff that we already all experience, but sometimes, we're not all aware of certain cases around the country, different states, where the application of foreign laws has been used in certain circumstances. And I can think of a couple, but even at the appellate courts, the higher courts, those lower judges' rulings were overturned. So that was good. It's good that those judges' rulings were overturned, but it shouldn't have happened in the first place, that people would have been deprived of any of their liberty through the application of foreign law. And that includes, like I think we were using the laws from India for an example, and others. So this bill has made, I think, a huge leap into the direction of trying to cooperate and protect even religious freedom. This bill really did turn into a civil liberties defense bill. The difference between a civil liberty and maybe a vested liberty or a vested right is that a civil liberty is one of those liberties that's inherent, it's already inside of you. And so it can't by any means be extracted from your person. Your ability to speak your freedom of speech is just as natural as your ability to speak, which is why the Founding Fathers would have called it a natural right. And that's really the intent here, is to make sure that we're using this bill to protect that specific spirit of the law.
Thank you very much. I don't have any more written questions. If there are written questions, please send them forward. But I don't have any right now. To make a quick announcement, there is a sign-in sheet going around. I don't know where it is, but make sure that continues to be circulated so everybody can sign in. And we might open it up for just if somebody wants to ask a question verbally, they may do so, unless there's something going on there. But if there's anybody who wants to ask a question verbally, you can do that as well. And yes, but you have to speak loud.
I just want to ask, if you could give a legitimate example of when this law would benefit anybody. Like a very legitimate one, not hypothetical.
Is that for Paul Kirkman?
Yeah.
Sure. If you like, I'll give you an example, and I'll even use a case of Sharia law, if that works. And now, when I say that, from my understanding,